The warning sirens screamed across Kepler Station like wounded animals. Admiral Helena Cross ran through the metal corridors, her boots echoing against the walls. Red lights flashed everywhere, painting the station in the color of blood. "Report," she shouted as she burst onto the command bridge. Lieutenant Torres looked up from his screen, his face pale as death. "Admiral, we're receiving distress signals from 17 different colonies. All of them went silent within the last 3 hours." Helena felt ice form in her stomach. 17 colonies. That meant millions of people. Families, children, entire worlds just gone. "Show me," she ordered. The main screen lit up with a map of human space. Red dots marked each colony that had gone dark. They formed a perfect line, like someone had drawn a path through human territory with the tip of a sword. New Geneva was the last one to go silent, Torres continued. "We have long-range sensors still locked on the system. Would you like to see?" Helena nodded, though every part of her wanted to say no. The screen changed to show the New Geneva system. Where the planet should have been, there was nothing. Not debris, not chunks of rock, not even dust. Just empty space, as if the planet had never existed at all. "How?" she whispered. "Unknown, Admiral. We detected strange energy readings just before each colony went dark. Then, nothing." A new voice spoke from behind them. "They're still there." Everyone turned to see Commander Walsh, the station's science officer. His hands shook as he held a datapad. "What do you mean?" Helena asked. "I've been scanning the New Geneva system with quantum sensors. The planet isn't destroyed. It's been removed. Taken. The gravitational signature is wrong, like something reached in and pulled the entire world out of reality." Helena stared at the empty space on the screen. In 30 years of military service, she had seen battles, wars, even the complete destruction of space stations. But this was different. This was impossible. Any sign of the attackers? Negative. Whatever did this left no trace. No engine signatures, no weapon residue, nothing. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of computers and the distant wail of sirens. Helena tried to process what she was seeing. Someone or something had erased 17 worlds in 3 hours. Millions of humans gone without a trace. "Admiral," Torres called out. "Incoming transmission from Earth. It's the President." The screen flickered and President Chen appeared. The man looked like he had aged 10 years in the past few hours. His usually perfect hair was messy, and his eyes showed the kind of fear that Helena had never seen from him before. "Admiral Cross," he began, his voice tight. "I assume you're aware of the situation." "Yes, sir. 17 colonies all gone. No survivors, no trace of the attackers," Chen nodded grimly. "We're calling it the silent strike. Every member of the High Command is being recalled to Earth immediately. We need to discuss our response." "What kind of response can we make against an enemy we can't even find?" Helena asked. The President's face hardened. "We find them. And then we make sure they understand what happens when someone attacks humanity." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in heavy silence. Helena looked around at her crew. They were all young. Most of them had never seen real combat. They joined the military thinking they would patrol trade routes and chase pirates, not face an enemy that could erase planets. "Admiral," Walsh spoke up again, "there's something else. The quantum readings, they're still active. Whatever technology did this, it's scanning our space. Right now, is scanning for what? I don't know. But they're definitely watching us." Helena felt a chill run down her spine. Somewhere out there in the dark between stars, something was studying humanity. Something powerful enough to steal entire worlds. "All hands, this is Admiral Cross," she announced over the station's communication system. "Effective immediately, we are at maximum alert. All civilian traffic is suspended. All military personnel report to stations. We don't know who attacked our colonies, but we will find them." Over the next several hours, reports came in from across human space. Every military commander reported the same thing. No contact with the enemy, no survivors from the attacked colonies, and strange energy readings that suggested something was still out there, watching. Helena stood in her private office, looking out at the stars through the large window. Somewhere among those points of light, an enemy waited. An enemy that could reach out and pluck worlds from existence like picking fruit from a tree. A soft knock came at her door. "Come in." Torres entered, holding another datapad. "Admiral, we've received new orders from Earth. All fleet units are being recalled to Sol system." "All of them?" Helena raised an eyebrow. "That would leave the entire frontier undefended." "Yes, ma'am. Every ship, every crew. The president is calling it the Great Assembly. Helena took the data pad and read the orders. The language was clear and frightening. Humanity was preparing for total war against an unknown enemy. Every warship, from the massive dreadnoughts to the smallest patrol craft, was being called home. How many ships? She asked. Torres checked his notes. Current estimates suggest around 800,000 vessels will answer the call. 800,000 warships. Helena had trouble imagining that many ships in one place. The combined fleet would be larger than anything in human history. It would be a show of force that even an enemy capable of stealing planets might respect. Prepare the station for skeleton crew operations, she ordered. We're taking every combat-capable ship back to Earth. Yes, Admiral. Ma'am, do you think it will be enough? Helena looked back out at the stars. 17 worlds had vanished in 3 hours. Millions of people gone. Whatever enemy they faced had technology beyond human understanding. It has to be, she said quietly. Because if 800,000 warships aren't enough, then nothing is. As Torres left, Helena remained at the window. In the distance, she could see the first ships already beginning to move, their engines lighting up like new stars. Soon, the greatest fleet in human history would gather at Earth. The enemy had struck without warning, taken what they wanted, and disappeared into the dark. But they had made one critical mistake. They had attacked humanity. And humans, Helena knew, never forgot, never forgave, and never ever gave up. The silent strike was over. But the real war was just beginning. Somewhere out there, an enemy waited. Soon they would learn what happened when you awakened the sleeping giant of humanity. The stars seemed to flicker as more ships began their journey home. 800,000 vessels carrying the hopes and anger of an entire species. Whatever had taken those 17 worlds would face the full might of human determination. Helena touched the window with her palm, feeling the cold of space beyond. We're coming, she whispered to the darkness. And we're bringing everything we have. Captain Marcus Reed had never seen so many ships in one place. From the bridge of his battlecruiser Defiant, he watched as hundreds of thousands of vessels filled the space around Earth. The massive fleet stretched from the moon's orbit to beyond Mars, a metal ocean that blocked out the stars. Dreadnoughts the size of cities floated next to swift destroyers. Carriers launched fighter squadrons that moved like swarms of angry insects. Supply ships, medical vessels, and troop transports filled the gaps between warships. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Sir, his communications officer called out. We're receiving the final count from Fleet Command. Let's hear it, Marcus said, not taking his eyes off the incredible sight before him. 800,412 vessels, sir, from every corner of human space. Marcus shook his head in amazement. Ships had come from colonies so far away that their crews had never seen Earth before. Veterans from border wars served alongside fresh recruits who had never fired a shot in anger. Humanity had emptied its entire military to create this fleet. Captain, his science officer, Dr. Sarah Chen, approached from her station. I've been analyzing the data from the 17 colonies. There's something strange about the attack pattern. Strange how? Sarah pulled up a holographic display showing the positions of the lost worlds. Look at the order they were hit. It's not random. Whoever did this chose these specific colonies for a reason. Marcus studied the pattern. The 17 worlds formed a rough circle around a section of space known as the Veil Nebula. They were creating a perimeter? More than that. Each colony had something unique. New Geneva was our largest agricultural world. Kepler-7 had our most advanced research facilities. Haven Colony housed our biggest cultural archives. You think they were targeting specific resources? Or specific types of people? Sarah said quietly. Scientists, farmers, artists, historians. Like they were collecting samples. Before Marcus could respond, the ship's communication system activated. President Chen's voice filled the bridge, broadcast to every vessel in the massive fleet. People of Earth, defenders of humanity, the president began. 3 days ago, our enemies showed us that they can reach across space and steal entire worlds. They took 17 of our colonies. Millions of our people. They did this without warning, without mercy, without even telling us why. Marcus looked around his bridge. His crew, like crews throughout the fleet, listened with grim faces. These were volunteers all. When the call went out for the largest military operation in human history, people lined up to join. Even civilian ships had been converted to carry weapons and supplies. Today we show them what happens when you attack humanity, the president continued. 800,000 warships carry our answer to the stars. We go not just for revenge but for survival. If we don't stop this enemy now, they may return to finish what they started. The transmission ended with fleet movement orders. Marcus felt the Defiant's engines come to life as they began the journey to enemy space. Around them, the massive armada started to move, forming into battle groups that stretched across the solar system. Time to jump coordinates? Marcus asked his navigator. 6 hours, sir. The fleet is so large it will take that long just to get everyone into hyperspace formation. Marcus nodded. Moving 800,000 ships was like trying to organize 800,000 people to walk through a single door at the same time. It required precise timing and perfect coordination. As they waited, Marcus walked through his ship. The Defiant was a good vessel, built for long patrol missions on the frontier. Her crew of 300 had served together for 2 years, fighting pirates and smugglers. But this was different. This time they were heading toward an enemy that could make planets disappear. In the ship's rec room, he found groups of sailors talking quietly. Some played cards, others wrote letters home. Many just stared at the walls thinking about what they might face. Captain, Chief Petty Officer Williams stood up as Marcus entered. The crew's been asking questions. What kind of questions? About the enemy, sir. About what we're really going up against. Marcus sat down at one of the tables. The crew gathered around him, their faces showing the worry they all felt. Honestly, Chief, we don't know much. They can remove entire planets somehow. They strike without warning and leave no trace. But we know one thing for certain. They made a mistake when they attacked us. How's that, sir? Asked Petty Officer Lopez. They assume we'll react like other species they've faced. Maybe other aliens would surrender after losing 17 worlds. Maybe they would hide and hope to be left alone. But they don't understand humans. Seaman Rodriguez, barely 20 years old, raised her hand. Sir, what if their technology is too advanced? What if our weapons can't even hurt them? Marcus looked at the young woman. She had joined the Navy straight from high school, full of dreams about seeing the stars. Now she was heading toward what might be humanity's last battle. Rodriguez, how many humans are in this fleet? Sir, 800,000 ships, average crew of 400 each. That's over 300 million people. 300 million humans who chose to leave everything behind and fly toward an unknown enemy. What does that tell you about our species? The young sailor thought for a moment. That we don't back down? Exactly. Whatever technology this enemy has, they're about to face something they've probably never encountered before. Human determination, human courage, and human stubbornness. The crew chuckled at that last part. Marcus stood up looking at each of them. I won't lie to you. This mission might be a one-way trip. The enemy has shown they can destroy worlds. But they made one critical error. They gave us time to respond. Time to gather every ship, every weapon, every person willing to fight for our species. The ship's announcement system activated. All hands prepare for hyperspace jump in 30 minutes. Marcus looked out the rec room's small window. The fleet was finally forming into jump formation, a sight that took his breath away. Ships as far as the eye could see, all heading toward the same destination. All carrying the same message, Chief, he said to Williams. Make sure everyone understands something. We're not just carrying weapons into enemy space. We're carrying the hopes of every human being. Our families, our children, our future. That's worth fighting for. As Marcus returned to the bridge, he thought about his own daughter back on Earth. Lisa was studying to be a teacher, planning to work on one of the frontier colonies after graduation. The same colonies that the enemy had stolen. Captain, Sarah approached him again. I've been thinking about the enemy's pattern. If they're collecting samples of human civilization, they might not expect us to retaliate with this much force. What do you mean? Think about it. If you were studying an animal species, would you expect them to attack you after you captured a few specimens? You'd probably think they would hide from you. Marcus considered this. You're saying they might be unprepared for a fleet this size? I'm saying they might have underestimated what makes humans different from other species. The hyperspace countdown began. Across the fleet, 800,000 ships prepared to jump into the unknown. Marcus took his position in the captain's chair, watching as his crew completed their final checks. Hyperspace jump in 10 seconds, the navigator announced. Marcus thought about Lisa's last message to him. She had said she believed in humanity's ability to overcome any challenge. Looking at the massive fleet around him, he began to believe she was right. Jump! The stars disappeared as 800,000 human warships vanished into hyperspace, carrying the largest military force in human history. toward an enemy that was about to learn what happened when you awakened humanity's protective instincts. Across the galaxy, the revolution was spreading. On the mining world of Karathi Prime, worker Zeth crouched behind a pile of ore containers, clutching a weapon built from mining equipment. Around him, hundreds of his fellow Karathi were preparing for the final assault on the Hegemony Command Center. "Brothers and sisters," Zeth called out, "today we follow the human example. Today we choose death over slavery." The transmission from Earth had changed everything. For 200 years, the Karathi had accepted their fate. They worked in the mines, produced ore for hegemony ships, and died quietly when they became too old to work. But the human message had awakened something they thought was dead: their warrior spirit. "Remember the humans of the Harmony," shouted another Karathi fighter. "They offered peace and were answered with violence. They showed us that some things are worth dying for." The attack began at dawn. Karathi fighters poured out of their hiding places, charging the hegemony garrison with makeshift weapons and fierce determination. They had studied human military history from the transmitted data. They used guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run attacks, and most importantly, they refused to surrender. The hegemony soldiers were shocked. For decades, the Karathi had been model slaves, quiet, obedient, broken. Now they fought like demons, caring nothing for their own safety. When cornered, they detonated explosive charges rather than be captured. Commander Vess, the hegemony officer in charge of the planet, watched the rebellion unfold from his command bunker. "How many troops do we have left?" he asked his aide. 30% casualties, sir. The rebels are using human tactics. They're unpredictable." Vess slammed his fist on the table. "They're supposed to be broken. We've controlled them for 2 centuries. The human transmission changed them, sir. They're fighting like they have nothing to lose." On the insect world of Vexar, a similar uprising was taking place. The Vexari had been perfect workers for 50 years, organized, efficient, never causing trouble. But the human example had reminded them of their own history of cooperation and sacrifice. Queen Zix, the last royal survivor of her species, emerged from hiding for the first time in decades. Around her, millions of Vexari workers abandoned their post to join the rebellion. "Children of the hive," she buzzed to her people. "The humans have shown us the way. They proved that the strong do not always defeat the brave. They proved that freedom is worth any price." The Vexari used their natural teamwork abilities to devastating effect. They swarmed hegemony positions like a living flood, overwhelming defenses through sheer numbers and coordination. When hegemony ships tried to escape, the Vexari pilots flew their own vessels directly into the enemy engines. Similar uprisings were erupting on dozens of worlds. The hegemony had ruled through fear and overwhelming force for 3,000 years. But suddenly their slaves were no longer afraid. The human transmission had shown them that defeat in battle did not mean defeat in spirit. High Admiral Korth, Supreme Commander of the Hegemony Fleet, stood in his flagship's command center watching reports pour in from across the Empire. Red warning lights covered the galaxy map, each one representing a world in revolt. "Status report," he demanded. His aide, a nervous young officer, consulted his datapad. "Sir, we have active rebellions on 47 worlds. 17 mining stations have been destroyed. 3 entire sectors are in open revolt. How is this possible?" Korth roared. "These species have been slaves for generations. They know they cannot win. Sir, they seem to be following human tactical doctrines. They're not trying to win traditional battles. They're trying to cause maximum damage and inspire others to rebel." Korth studied the tactical display. The pattern was clear. Every uprising had begun after the human transmission reached that world. The humans had not just declared war on the hegemony. They had declared war on the very idea of oppression. "What about the human homeworld?" Korth asked. "Fleet Commander Zeth reports heavy resistance, sir. The humans are difficult to defeat." "Difficult?" Korth's voice was dangerously quiet. "They're one small planet with primitive technology." "Yes, sir, but they refuse to surrender. Our psychological warfare has no effect. When we destroy their ships, they ram ours with the wreckage. When we kill their soldiers, others line up to replace them." Korth turned to his chief strategist, an ancient alien who had planned countless conquests. "Advisor Meln, how do we stop this?" The old advisor was quiet for a long moment. "High Admiral, in 3,000 years of conquest, we have never faced an enemy like this. Other species fight to survive. Humans fight to win. Other species surrender when defeat is certain. Humans fight harder. There must be a way to break them, Korth insisted. Perhaps, Meln replied slowly, but breaking humanity may not be enough anymore. Their message has already spread. Their example has inspired others. Even if we destroy Earth completely, the revolution will continue. Back on Earth, General Stone received reports from across the galaxy. The human transmission had done more than warn of war. It had started a galactic revolution. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were suddenly fighting for their freedom. Sir, Colonel Adams reported, we're getting messages from rebel groups across the galaxy. They're using our tactical manuals. They're copying our strategies. Stone nodded grimly. Good. The more worlds that rise up, the thinner the hegemony spreads their forces. But sir, Adams continued, many of these rebellions will fail. The rebels don't have our weapons or training. It doesn't matter, Stone replied. What matters is that they're fighting. Every act of defiance weakens the hegemony's control. Every rebel who dies inspires 10 more to take up arms. On the screen, a message came in from the Karathi rebellion. Seth's battered face appeared, speaking through a translator. People of Earth, he said, your courage has given us courage. Your sacrifice has shown us the way. We may die today, but our children will be free because you taught us to fight. Stone felt tears in his eyes. This was not the war humanity had wanted. They had reached out in peace and been answered with violence. But from that violence, something beautiful was emerging. The idea that freedom was worth any price. Signal all our ships, Stone ordered. Tell them that the galaxy is watching. Tell them that every battle they fight inspires others to resist oppression. Tell them they're not just fighting for Earth anymore. Captain Rodriguez, still commanding the Vengeance in the ongoing battle around Earth, received the message. Around her, the bridge crew was exhausted from hours of combat. Half her weapons were destroyed, her shields were failing, and enemy ships still outnumbered them 3-1. Captain, her tactical officer reported. Incoming transmission from the Hegemony flagship. Commander Zeth appeared on the screen. His perfect alien features were twisted with rage and frustration. Human Captain, your resistance is pointless. Even if you win here, the Hegemony controls 1,000 worlds. You are just one species. Rodriguez smiled through the blood on her face. Commander, you're wrong about something important. We're not just one species anymore. We're the spark that lights the fire, and fires spread. As if to prove her point, alerts began flashing on the Hegemony ship's displays. Reports of new uprisings, failed supply lines, and spreading rebellion flooded their communication channels. The humans had kept their promise. They had made the Hegemony regret choosing war over peace, and this was only the beginning. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Veil Nebula, and Captain Marcus Reed felt his breath catch in his throat. Before them lay something that challenged everything he thought he knew about the universe. The Vex construct was enormous beyond imagination. It wasn't a moon. It was larger than most planets, a massive crystalline structure that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. Geometric patterns covered its surface, constantly shifting and changing like a living thing. Streams of energy flowed between towering spires that reached out into space like the arms of some cosmic sea creature. My God, whispered Dr. Sarah Chen from her station. It's beautiful. Marcus had to agree. Despite knowing that this structure held their missing colonies, he couldn't help but be amazed by its alien beauty. It looked less like a weapon and more like a work of art created by beings who understood the universe in ways humans never could. Captain, his communications officer called out, Admiral Cross is hailing all ships. The main screen lit up with the Admiral's face. Behind her, Marcus could see the bridge of the Terra's Wrath buzzing with activity. All fleet commanders, she began. You can see our target. Long-range scans show minimal defensive systems. Either the Vex are overconfident or they don't consider us a threat. Marcus frowned. That didn't match the intelligence reports. Any civilization advanced enough to steal planets should have defenses that could challenge 800,000 warships. Fleet will assume attack formation Beta 7, Admiral Cross continued. We'll surround the construct and demand the return of our colonies. If they refuse, we'll demonstrate the consequences of attacking humanity. As the massive fleet began to move into position, Marcus noticed something strange. Vex ships were emerging from the construct, but not in the numbers he expected. Maybe a few hundred of the crystal vessels when there should have been thousands. Sarah, He called to his science officer. Are you reading what I'm reading? She checked her instruments. If these are their total defensive forces, this doesn't make sense. They should have enough ships to defend a structure this size. Before Marcus could respond, something impossible happened. A single Vex ship broke away from the others and began approaching the human fleet. Not with weapons powered up, not in an attack pattern. It moved slowly, deliberately, and as it got closer, Marcus could see something that made his heart skip a beat. Captain, his tactical officer said in a confused voice, that ship is broadcasting on standard human frequencies. And sir, it's flying a white flag. Marcus stared at the display. A white flag. The universal human symbol for surrender or peaceful contact. How could an alien species possibly know about human customs? All ships hold position. Admiral Cross's voice came over the fleet channel. I repeat, all ships hold position. We have a situation. The Vex ship came to a stop exactly halfway between the human fleet and the construct. It hung in space like a crystal jewel, its surface pulsing with soft light. Captain Reed. Admiral Cross's voice came through on a private channel. I'm ordering you to join me aboard the Terra's Wrath. We're going to attempt first contact. An hour later, Marcus found himself in the Admiral's ready room, along with a dozen other senior officers. Admiral Cross looked tired and worried, older than he had ever seen her. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, we're facing something unprecedented. The Vex have requested a meeting, not a surrender, not a negotiation for terms, a meeting to explain themselves. How can they even communicate with us? Asked Captain Stevens from the destroyer Wolverine. That's the strangest part, Admiral Cross replied. They don't use language as we understand it. They communicate through what our scientists are calling quantum harmonics, direct mind-to-mind contact that bypasses the need for words. Dr. Chen leaned forward. Admiral, are you saying they can read our thoughts? Not exactly. It's more like they can share concepts and emotions directly. Our science teams have been working with their representative for the past hour. What they've learned changes everything. Admiral Cross activated a holographic display showing the interior of what looked like the Terra's Wrath's conference room. But sitting at the table was something that made Marcus's mind struggle to process what he was seeing. The Vex representative looked almost human, but not quite. It was tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to be made of the same crystal material as their ships. Its face was beautiful in an alien way, with large eyes that held depths of knowledge and sadness. This is Keeper Thalan, Admiral Cross explained. It has been trying to explain why they took our colonies. The display activated, and suddenly Marcus felt the strangest sensation of his life. Words appeared in his mind, but not through his ears. Concepts and emotions flowed directly into his consciousness, as if someone was placing thoughts into his head. The feeling was of ancient sadness, of watching civilizations rise and fall like flowers blooming and dying. Images flashed through his mind, worlds destroyed by war, species wiping themselves out through their own mistakes, entire civilizations collapsing under the weight of their own success. Then he saw Earth, not as it was now, but as the Vex predicted it would become. Cities burning, oceans boiling away, humans fighting wars over the last remaining resources until nothing was left but ash and regret. They're gardeners, Admiral Cross said quietly. The Vex travel the galaxy preserving what they can from dying civilizations. They've been doing it for millions of years. Marcus felt his understanding of the universe shift. They weren't attacking us. They were trying to save us. According to their predictions, humanity has less than 50 years before we destroy ourselves. Climate change, resource wars, nuclear conflicts, they've seen the pattern hundreds of times before. The 17 colonies were supposed to be preservation efforts. The thoughts continued to flow. Marcus saw vast archives containing the preserved essence of thousands of dead species, art, music, literature, even the quantum patterns of individual consciousness, all carefully stored by the Vex before their creators were lost forever. But something changed their calculations, Admiral Cross continued. Our response. The fact that we assembled 800,000 ships and came looking for a fight. They've never seen anything like it. More images flowed through Marcus's mind. Species that had simply given up when faced with the Vex's preservation efforts, others that had begged to be saved, some that had hidden in fear, but none that had ever gathered their entire military might and come seeking revenge. The emotion that came with these thoughts was surprise. And something else. Hope. They want to make us an offer, Admiral Cross said. They'll return our 17 colonies, restore every person they took, and share their archives with us. All the knowledge of 1,000 dead civilizations, what's the catch? Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew. We have to prove we're worth saving. They want us to show them that humanity can be the first species to survive its own nature, to grow beyond our destructive impulses and become something that could last forever. The room fell silent as the officers processed this information. Everything they had prepared for, the largest military operation in human history, had been based on a misunderstanding. What does the president say? Captain Stevens asked. He's giving the fleet commanders authority to make the decision. This is too big for any one person to decide. Marcus thought about his daughter Lisa, about her message about human determination. But what if determination wasn't enough? What if what humanity really needed was wisdom? Admiral, he said slowly, what exactly are they asking us to do? The mental contact resumed, and Marcus saw the Vex's challenge. Humanity would be given access to the archives, shown the mistakes that had destroyed every other species they had encountered. The test was simple, but seemingly impossible. Could humans learn from others' mistakes instead of repeating them? They're offering us a chance to be the first species they've encountered that doesn't need to be preserved because it's dying, Admiral Cross explained. But we have to prove we can handle success without destroying ourselves. Marcus looked around the room at his fellow officers. These were military people trained for war and conflict. But the greatest battle they might ever fight wouldn't be against the Vex. It would be against humanity's own nature. There's one more thing, Admiral Cross added. If we accept their offer and fail the test, if humanity destroys itself despite their help, the Vex will preserve what they can and move on. But if we succeed, she paused, and Marcus felt a new emotion through the quantum link. Wonder. If we succeed, we become partners. They want us to help them preserve other species, to spread life and knowledge across the galaxy instead of just storing it. The weight of the decision pressed down on Marcus like a physical force. 800,000 ships full of warriors ready to fight for humanity's survival. But the real battle wasn't out here in space. It was back home, in the choices humanity would make about its own future. Captain Marcus Reed stood on the bridge of the Defiant, watching as arguments erupted across the human fleet. For 6 hours, the 800,000 ships had been locked in heated debate. Some commanders wanted to attack immediately, viewing the Vex offer as a trick. Others saw it as humanity's greatest opportunity. The quantum communication link with Keeper Thalon remained open, allowing the Vex representative to observe human nature in its rawest form. Marcus wondered what the ancient being thought as it watched humanity struggle with the biggest decision in their species' history. Captain? Dr. Sarah Chen approached him with a data pad. I've been analyzing the historical records the Vex shared with us. Every species they've encountered followed the same pattern. What pattern? They all reached a point where their technology advanced faster than their wisdom. They could destroy planets but couldn't stop fighting each other. They could extend life but couldn't find meaning in it. They gained the power of gods but kept the hearts of children. Marcus nodded grimly. It sounded familiar. Humanity had nuclear weapons that could destroy worlds, but still fought wars over borders drawn on maps. They had medical technology that could cure diseases, but people still died from poverty and neglect. Sir, his communications officer called out. Admiral Cross is requesting all fleet commanders join a final vote. The main screen activated, showing hundreds of faces from across the massive fleet. Marcus could see the division immediately. Some commanders had the hard look of warriors ready for battle. Others showed the uncertainty of people facing an impossible choice. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Cross began, we have to make our decision. The Vex are waiting, and every moment we delay costs us credibility. Captain Hendricks from the battleship Retribution spoke first. Admiral, with respect, how can we trust beings who kidnapped millions of our people? They attacked us without warning, without even trying to communicate first. Keeper Thalon's voice flowed through the quantum link, carrying emotions of sadness and regret. We have watched 17 species destroy themselves in the time it takes your sun to travel around your galaxy. Each time we told ourselves we should have acted sooner. With humanity, we chose to preserve what we could before it was too late. You decided we were going to fail without even giving us a chance. Captain Martinez from the cruiser Liberty shot back. Your own projections show the same outcome. Thalan replied gently. Climate collapse within 30 years. Resource wars within 40. Nuclear exchange within 50. We have seen this pattern too many times. Dr. Chen spoke up from her position. But Captain, they're offering to change those projections, to give us the knowledge to avoid those mistakes. And what's to stop them from attacking again if we don't measure up to their standards? Hendricks demanded. Marcus felt the weight of his daughter's message again. Her faith in humanity's ability to overcome challenges. But was she talking about overcoming external threats or internal ones? Admiral, he said, raising his voice above the arguments. May I suggest we ask Keeper Thalan a direct question? The fleet channel fell silent. Go ahead, Captain Reed. Marcus looked directly at the camera, knowing that somewhere the Vex representative was watching. Keeper Thalan, in your millions of years of experience, have you ever encountered a species that surprised you? The pause that followed felt like an eternity. Then through the quantum link came an emotion Marcus hadn't expected. Joy. Yes, Captain Reed. One species has surprised us. Humanity. How? In all our travels, we have never encountered a species that responded to loss with such unity and determination. When we took your 17 colonies, we expected fear, surrender, or perhaps small-scale rescue attempts. We did not expect you to assemble 800,000 warships. The emotion that came through the link was awe mixed with hope. Most species fragment under pressure. Humans seem to strengthen. Most species turn inward when threatened. Humans turn outward toward their enemy. Most species accept loss as inevitable. Humans refuse to accept any loss as permanent. Marcus felt something shift in his understanding. You're saying we already passed a test? You passed the first test simply by being here. No species has ever come looking for what we preserved. They assumed it was gone forever and mourned their loss. Humanity looked at 800,000 warships and said, this is not enough, but it will have to do. Admiral Cross leaned forward. Then why the challenge? Why not just return our colonies? Because we have learned that survival requires more than courage and determination. It requires wisdom, and wisdom cannot be given, it must be earned. Captain Stevens from the destroyer pack spoke up. What exactly does this test involve? The quantum link filled with images and concepts. Marcus saw humanity being given access to the Vex archives, learning about the mistakes that had destroyed countless civilizations. The test wasn't a single challenge, but a continuous one. Could humanity take this knowledge and apply it to avoid their own destructive patterns? You would become students of failure, Thalan explained. Learn from the mistakes of species that came before you. Use their experiences to guide your own development. And if we fail? Admiral Cross asked. Then we preserve what we can of your species and hope the next one we encounter will be wiser. Marcus thought about his daughter again, about the future she was planning to build. A future teaching children on frontier colonies, the same colonies that might be restored if humanity made the right choice. Admiral, he said, I'd like to share something with the fleet. Admiral Cross nodded. Marcus activated his personal communication system, broadcasting his daughter's message to every ship in the Armada. Lisa's face appeared on screens across 800,000 vessels. Her words about human determination and the ability to overcome any challenge reaching millions of ears. When the message ended, Marcus spoke directly to his fellow commanders. My daughter believes in humanity. She believes we can face any challenge and find a way through. But listening to the Vex, I realized the greatest challenge we face isn't out here in space. It's back home in how we choose to treat each other in our world. He paused, looking at the faces of his fellow officers. We came here ready to fight for our species. Maybe the real fight is learning to be worthy of survival. Silence fell across the fleet channel. Marcus could feel the weight of decision pressing down on 800,000 ships. Finally, Admiral Cross spoke. All commanders will vote by fleet sections. The decision must be unanimous among senior officers. The vote took an hour. Section by section, fleet by fleet, humanity's military leaders chose their species' future. When it was done, Admiral Cross looked directly into the camera. Keeper Thalan, humanity accepts your offer. We'll take the test. We'll learn from the mistakes of those who came before us, and we'll prove that humans can be worth saving. The response came as pure emotion through the quantum link. Relief, hope, and something else, pride. Then let us begin, Thalan said. Your colonies will be restored within 1 solar day. Your people will be returned exactly as they were taken. And then, Captain Reed, your species will embark on the greatest journey in the galaxy. the journey from survival to wisdom. Marcus watched as the massive Vex construct began to change, its crystal surfaces reorganizing themselves. In the distance, he could see new structures forming, docking bays large enough to accommodate human ships. "Captain," Sarah Chen said quietly, "what do you think will happen to us?" Marcus thought about the question. 800,000 warships had come here ready for the greatest battle in human history. Instead, they were about to become something unprecedented. Students in a cosmic classroom. "I think we're about to find out what humans can become when they're given the chance to learn instead of fight." As the first human ships began moving toward the Vex construct, Marcus felt his daughter's faith in humanity beginning to seem less like hope and more like prophecy. Humanity had faced its greatest test not with weapons, but with wisdom. The real adventure was just beginning. Years later, Captain Marcus Reed would stand on the bridge of his ship as it approached a distant star system, no longer carrying weapons of war but tools of exploration and preservation. The Defiant had become part of something greater, a joint human-Vex fleet, dedicated to finding and preserving civilizations. Before they destroyed themselves, his daughter Lisa had become one of the first human teachers in the cosmic archives, helping to educate new species in the hard-learned lessons of survival. The 17 colonies had been restored, their people returned with new purpose and knowledge, and humanity had kept its promise. They had learned from the mistakes of 1,000 dead civilizations and used that knowledge to avoid their own destruction. Earth was healing, its people united by the understanding that they were no longer alone in the universe. The greatest victory hadn't been defeating an enemy. It had been discovering that survival required more than strength. It required the wisdom to know when not to fight, and the courage to change.